Welcome everybody back to another video with me, Danny Z. So I happen to be looking through my book. Did you know I wrote a book? I did write a book. It's called The Happy Marriage Hot Sex Handbook, and you can get it for free if you go to Danny, DannyZE.com/HSH. Anyway, quick plug, now over. I was flipping through it, like with the last video. I just wanted to kind of go back over things. You ever like write in your diary and you're like, oh, I wanted that was like 5 years ago. Oh, how much I've changed since then. Well, this was a couple years ago that I wrote this book. And so what I wanted to do is just look back, self-assess, like how much have I grown? Is what I have said radically different now? And maybe it's not going to be radically different from what I think right now, or is it going to be much in line with what I believe now, only amplified? Am I going to have matured? Now, certainly I've matured. I hope I've matured. But I did notice that, it's like flipping through, I'm like, that's gold. That's really, really good stuff. And it's really, really short. It's a short book, so I encourage you to go over and get it. You can get it for free, literally for free. But what's fun there is looking back on things and saying, all right, well, if that is so good, then why don't we talk about it again, Because if it's good, then more people need to know about it, right? So, I was up to the second chapter. The first video that I did, it was about cleaving to one another. Chapter number 2 is about not holding back. Now, this is very relevant because we are coming up to Pesach, Passover, to the Christians and to the non-Yiddish or Hebrew or whatever that word, whatever the pronunciation is. I actually don't know, but it's Pesach. The Jews that I know call it Pesach, and the sometimes they call it Passover. Anyway, I'm going on a tangent. But we're coming up to Pesach, and so I thought, well, how does this relate to not holding back in your marriage? Specifically, the chapter was about not holding back in your marriage. There's the most phenomenal sunset. I have such a pleasure. I get to watch sunsets every single day. It's one of my most treasured things. I love sunsets. Anyway, God put me in a totally unique place on the Gold Coast where I just get to observe it. I wish you could see it. I try over and over again to try and film in front of it, but the it's just too bright out there. So I'm sorry, you're stuck in the kitchen, right? And I'm sorry about that. But anyway, I wondered, how is not holding back similar, or how can it relate to Pesach? A lot of people are preparing for Pesach. Most Christians are preparing for Easter. Pesach, Passover happened. That was the meal that Yeshua, that Jesus was having immediately prior to his death when he was crucified. Right, so it's a pretty big deal, It's a big deal to two of the major religions in the world. And so what does it mean to not hold back? Now, what I meant in the book, not holding back, is you get into a relationship, you get into a marriage with somebody, and, a lot of people they come with a lot of baggage, they come with a lot of walls, They grew up, they were hurt, they were injured, there was plenty of stuff that went wrong with them, and subsequently with each one of those hurts and each one of those injuries, they lay another brick in their wall. So then they wind up coming to the marriage with like pretty tall walls, Now, how do two people who come with walls, how are they able to reconcile that? Like, you got to become the master deconstructionist once you get to the marriage, because it doesn't work. When you've got two walls, all you're doing is like two people shouting over the walls at each other. And that's no good, for obvious reasons. So it might have to be one of you. One of you might have to break down the other person's walls. Tear down your own walls first. Be completely vulnerable with the other person, and then effectively try and find a way in, which is what I did, okay? Now, I'm a Chinese zodiac rat, so it's like I gnawed away, and I found the little cracks and crevices in my wife's walls, and as I was able to get in there. And before she knew it, I was already inside, and I was already plastering up, where I'd snuck in, and the other people couldn't because they didn't put in the time and attention. Now, this is something that's going to take time, and this is like if you ever have the pleasure of listening to Jordan Peterson and ignoring all of the crap that's said about him, actually listen to him and like try and go into it with an open mind. It's so difficult for people trying to go into a situation with an open mind and not allowing, anything that you've previously heard. It's a skill, and if you can adopt that skill going into something with an open mind, you'll be a far better person. And you'll be far less influenced by other people's agendas. For the moment, though, I encourage you to just get right on board with my agenda, right? But if you have the pleasure to listen to Jordan Peterson, he talks about a sacrifice. He talks where you are going to pick your sacrifice one way or another. What I spoke about in being, this is a time investment. You got to be together for a little while in order to kind of get to know one another and get to know one another's walls, where the weaknesses are, where you could potentially slip in. That's important because you have to be able to get together. And I know I'm using a metaphor here, but you have to find yourself on the same side of the wall. Otherwise, it's never going to work out. And if both of you are just stalwartly sitting on the opposite sides of your own respective walls, then you know what's coming. Divorce is coming, and that's no good for anybody. And then what's happened? You've just wasted time. So let's talk about wasted time. We're in the middle of this coronavirus crisis, this COVID-19 crisis. So you have a real opportunity. I saw a lady the other day, lives a couple doors down from me, and she was doing what I assume, I hope, many other people in her position would be doing. She was washing the car. Not necessarily that I hope that you would be washing the car, more that I hope that you would be making good use of your time. Because a lot of people up until now, we have spent so much time wasting our time. The phone that you're watching right now, or the TV, or if you have Chromecast me onto your TV, call me. A free book for you. But the amount of time that we waste is just insane, right? So the time that you spend with a person attempting to get to know that person, you start off in a marriage with the best of intentions. And I made a video about this the other day, not the other day, it was a few weeks back, about because I'm kind of a cynic, which is interesting, given that I am trying to encourage, if you don't know, I'm trying to encourage the long-standing and enduring relationships of married people, because I believe that ultimately that will change the world. Maybe not in this generation, but perhaps the next generation or the next generation, right? And what better time, it's when's the best time to plant a tree? 20 years ago. When's the second best time? Right now, right? So that's what I'm doing. That's my little mission right here. That's what the book is about. That's what the videos are about. That's what everything is about. If I can make some little difference in your life that encourages you to take different action that you're not getting from everybody. Everybody is telling you, just hang it up, or he doesn't deserve you. And you live your truth and I'll live my truth, and it's not serving you and all that kind of crap. All of us need to just take a real dose of reality here. And I think we're getting that. I think we're getting it. Take a dose of reality and just remember that you're not the most important person in the room. You're not. I'm not, no matter how many times I try and tell myself that I am. But you're not the most important part of the universe, certainly. Not the most important person in the room. And you gotta just dial it back a little bit and just remember that, remember where you are. Remember what you're actually here for. And maybe you got to go looking for that. So when I'm talking about the lady who's down there, she's washing her car. She's actually making good use of her time because she's locked up. Coronavirus, COVID, everybody's locked up. It's locked down here. ScoMo, we call our Prime Minister ScoMo. Here in Australia, we call him ScoMo. And ScoMo's locked us down. We've said, help us, why aren't you doing anything? And he said, okay, fine, you're in lockdown. We're like, aww, because now our economy's completely tanked. Anyway, I could go off on another tangent in that direction, but the point is, she said, okay, well, I've got all this time now locked down. I may as well make good use of it because I didn't have any time before. So the time that you invest in your marriage, the time that you invest in your relationship, spent getting to know one another, if you cut and run, then all you've done is wasted the time. Take the amount of time, okay? And I do believe that there's an ideal time to get married. If you want to know what it is, send me a DM, because I don't think nobody wants to hear my advice on that. So yeah, just let me know. It is not the current age by any stretch of the imagination. Okay? So if there's an appropriate age that I feel that there is to get, I'll just tell you, it's 18. 18-ish. Right now, I'm 36. 35. I'm not 36 yet. I'm 35. Right now, it's like 35 is the new 25. People are getting married now. They've already done the career thing, and now I'm going to settle down. And I think that's a bad idea. Another reason why I think it should be closer to 18, 19, 20, which is when I got married. And of course, I want you to do everything the way I think that you should do it, the way I did it. Why? Because I'm the most successful married person that I know, right? And I know what I did, so all I can do is offer you the advice that I took myself, or to follow the trail from, behind me. Like, where have I been? I can't offer you any other advice than what I've actually done. This is the only experience that I have, and I know how it differs from the rest of the world. Okay? So let's say that you don't get married until you're 35. Okay? Now so you're already behind the ball. You're 10 years behind the ball, at least. Probably more like 15. At best, probably more like 17 at worst, okay? If I think that you should be married at 18, okay? So that's a lot of years that have gone by. Now, you haven't wasted those years. What you have done is you've spent those building your career, most likely. That's what most people are doing. This is the trendy thing. I'm going to make lots of money. And there's reasons why I think that is holy cow bad. Watch the previous video about leaving and cleaving if you want to know those reasons. I don't go into it in super depth, but perhaps you can pick up the nuggets. Perhaps you can understand why. If you don't understand, leave it in the comments. I'll explain it. But so you're already behind the 8 ball, let's say 10, 15, 17 years. Then all of a sudden, you have been in this marriage or this relationship for 2 years-ish, and you're like, this is too hard. I don't want to do it. My mother went through this with her second husband. This is like, I'm out of here. I don't want to do this. I don't want to work on this. Yes, I've had the big wedding. Yes, I've done the do-over. Yes, all those things. But I know hard work when I see it, and I don't want that. And if my mother was good at anything, it was good. She was good at avoiding work. So, and I love my mother. Anyway, so what happens there is that so now you are 2 years into your relationship and you're ready to cut and run, but you're already 10 to 15 years behind the ball anyway. Let's say you got married at the exact ideal time. Let's just, for instance, say that. So now you've spent 2 years of your time. I know it doesn't sound like much. I know to you it seems like, 2 years. I'm young. I'm crazy. My son's just here. He's like playing video games. Okay, he's just right there. I can perform under this kind of stress, but I beg you to be quiet. So let's say that, for instance, you have gotten married at the appropriate time that I think you should get, or a more ideal time. You've just spent 2 years of your life getting to know some person that you're ready to like cut and run on. And this is what's so insane about people who decide to live together, because they're moving in. They think this is kind of like, yeah, maybe this is for keeps. But the video that I made a few weeks ago or months ago, I don't remember when it was, but it was me asking the question, the cynical question of, okay, now you've gotten married, but what's your plan after? What's your plan for after this? And they're like, what do you mean? What are you talking about? I'm like, well, what's your plan for when this marriage falls apart? I'd love to sit newly married couples down with me right now. And I'd say, okay, well, that's great. Congratulations, mazel tov. But what are you going to do when this marriage falls apart? Because, statistically, it probably will. And here's all of the reasons why it statistically wouldn't work out for you. I'm big into statistics. I'm a statistic beater. So it's the only, I talk about my experience and what I can give experience on and how it differs from the rest of the world. This is my experience, beating statistics. Okay? So my son's just leaving. Let's allow him to leave. So I would sit this newly married couple down and I would say, well, what's your plan for after this? Statistically, you're not going to make it. There's, no, we're so in love. I love him. He's my whole everything, or she's my everything, however they say it. I'm saying, yeah, but come on, let's be real here. Let's think about the future. My son is like a spur of the moment, live in the now kind of guy. He hates it when I try and talk to him about his future. He hates when I'm like, any further than 2 weeks out, he doesn't want to know. Truly. So I talk to these people. I was like, what are you going to do when you guys eventually break up? Because you probably will. They would swear black and blue that they wouldn't. Swear it. But we're just going to move in together first. Maybe you didn't get married. Maybe you're moving in together. Maybe you're going to get a dog together. Maybe you're going to get a plant together. Like dogs are pets are the new kids, and plants are the new pets, is what I'm hearing. So we're going to get a ficus together, and we're going to, really try things that way. And 2 years later, you're at the end of your third relationship that lasted 2 years approximately. Notice that there's a trend. Okay, not good. Trends, they'll definitely point you in whatever direction, you need to go in the opposite direction of if it's a bad trend. But the time that you spent with that person, it's gone. You don't get it back. People are like, oh, no, it's okay. I'll just start over. And then when I fall in love the next time, it'll all be sweet. But you don't get to my point. You don't get to my point in the relationship unless you've put in a good, solid, I'm up to 15 years? Something like that? Like a solid 15 years. I don't mean a 15 years where you've cruised. I know old people around who are from the older generation who they just got together and they just stuck, but that was as far as they grew. Neither one of them was willing to put in any effort. They just got together and they just stuck together, but they can't stand one another. But at least they're smart enough to know that it would mean financial ruin and a huge pain in the ass if ever they got divorced, right? So they're just not going to do that, right? So for me, it's like, we're talking about a big, we're talking about a commitment here. You don't get to where I am, and I'm not talking my wife out for a walk. So what I'm not talking about here is just getting together and like cruising. I'm talking like my wife and I have dug deep. We have endured lots and lots of shit. It has come at a price for sure. But you know what? This camera right here is sitting on a tripod. You know where I had to go and find that tripod? I'm gonna leave it up to your imagination. 15 years on, we're having better sex. We're like, oh my gosh, honeymoons are so wasted on the newlywed, for real. Because we get to this point, we love each other more than ever. We're still up there having hot sex at all hours of the day. And it's not just because she's a Scorpio and I'm a Virgo. I mean, it's like for real. And hey, if you're getting all uptight about the references to the zodiac, look into it, okay? I'm not saying that everything is true, and I don't read my spiritual sign for my day. Like, no. But if you read into where you are at on the Chinese zodiac, on the Western zodiac, even if you dig into the Enneagram, if you dig into MBTI personality typing, like you are a type of person, okay? And that's just one way in which they describe you. It's like an elephant just sitting on the counter, and somebody takes a picture from like 5 different angles. It's still the elephant. They're just gonna tell a different story, right? It's gonna look different when you're looking at the trunk compared to when you're looking at the ass, okay? So there's my little, just chill out on the zodiac thing. But the point here is that we have put in lots and lots and lots of effort, and you don't get to this point if you cut and run after 2 years. So I spoke about Passover. I spoke about not holding anything back. I spoke about getting inside your walls, and I spoke about coronavirus. How the hell does this all come together? I'm waiting to get I've got it, okay? So God was isolating everybody when it came to the original Pesach. When it came to the original Passover, God said, guess what? You are going to camp in your house. My wife. Oh, so rude. All right, we're trying this again. Family came home. Believe it or not, I live and work from home, so I got to deal with the family every so often. The point that I was getting to is that all of these things can be joined together, because here we sit, everybody's in lockdown, very much like the original Pesach, and you're left, when you're locked down, you're left with very few excuses very, very few excuses as to why you've got to, you have to go to the office, or you got to go over to your mate's house or your friend's house. You have to go over here. You have to do this or you have to do that. Like, ultimately, everybody in the house knows exactly the boat that everybody else is in, and it's the same one that they're in. And so, very much like the original Pesach, that's what they were feeling like. We're completely locked up. It's not just the Prime Minister who says stay home. It's God Almighty who says stay home and put blood on your door. Okay? It's pretty weird stuff. Things are happening to the Israelites that they have never happened before. Blood on the doorposts, and this is after the river's been turned to blood, and there's been heaps of frogs, and there's been wild beasts, and all sorts of hellish things that have been occurring to poor old Egypt. So what's a bit more weirdness? But it's weird. Now it's weird on their home. Now it's weird in a way that it's never been weird before. Not only do they have to stay inside, they also have to put the blood on the door, which is just okay, so this is the only thing. This little splattering of blood is the only thing that is protecting me and saving me from the whole rest, from God coming through, God's angel coming through and actually killing people. Actual death is on the outside of the house. And I'm not trying to drum up fear into anybody. I'm talking about the original Pesach, okay? So when you're faced with death literally on the other side of your wall or your door, and the only thing that is protecting you there is this bit of vulnerability. You talk about a lamb, you talk about how vulnerable a lamb is. For goodness sakes, lamb is the most vulnerable thing there is, and it had to be blemishless. It couldn't be a stubborn jackass of a lamb. It had to be a legit white, pure as snow lamb. That is what you kill. That is the blood that you put on the door, and that's the only thing that's separating the two of you. Maybe take a hint from that, okay? Because those people, what kind of conversation do you think they had on that night? What kind of conversation do you think they had when they're sitting around talking about, holy crap, what is even going on? I don't understand what's going on. Do you understand what's going on? And allegedly, the most spiritual person in the house had to be there. They're it's all going to be okay. God says this, it's all going to be okay. But inside, they are essing bees. That's shitting bricks to people who don't have kids around. Mute the video. That's the only thing. There's death on the other side. So they're going to be having some pretty real conversations there. Moses, has told them a bunch of stuff tomorrow we're going free. What does that even mean? Should we be packing? No, you shouldn't be packing. You should be sitting there. You should be ready to go. And this is what you should be doing. This is the liturgy. This is the order. This is everything right here. Okay? This is what you need to know. Stay inside. Blood on the door. Eat the lamb. Don't leave anything over until the next day. And you better be ready to hustle as soon as day breaks. Ready? As soon as you get the signal, you're out the door. You're ready to go. Okay? So here we have, don't hold back. We are coming up to Pesach, our own Pesach for 2020. Jews all over the world are preparing for this. Some Christians are, because they like to observe, and God bless them. We're all locked inside. There's lots of weird things going on. Lots of weird things. And you don't actually know what's going to happen tomorrow. And you're locked up with your loved ones, which is basically who the Israelites were locked up with. They're locked up with their loved ones. People who ideally believe similar things to what you believe. So what are you going to talk about? Are you going to take the opportunity to talk about real things, heart things? You actually don't know what tomorrow is going to bring. And every day, that is the truth. Every day, I wake up and I thank God that He gave me back my soul, that He gave me back my neshama, that He decided that He saw fit that I should live another day, even another day in which I would die. But He saw fit to give me back my soul. And I thank Him for giving me back my soul and displaying that trust in me, Here's something else that people are looking at, the full moon. I don't know if you happen to know, but pretty much every Jewish holiday lands on the full moon. Everybody's like, where can I see the fullest moon? Where can I go and see the full moon? Why do you think that's important to people? The moon is a timepiece that God put into the sky. It's like, this is important. When this baby is full, you should be taking note. There's something that you should be doing, and I'm going to remind you of it for eons. I'm going to remind you of it every single month. So here we are. It's the full moon. Pesach's coming. Everybody's locked in their house, but everybody wants desperately to see, to observe the full moon, which indicates that they ought to be observing something else. If you don't know anything about Pesach, I encourage you to do a mad dash to the grocery store and just try and have some kind of observance. And, nobody's shut down the internet, so go ahead and Google. But decide on that night to have a bit of a real conversation, because it might be your last. Who knows what's going to happen? Who knows what's going to happen tomorrow? I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, and it's not even significant. We're getting a day closer to Pesach, so I can pretty much guarantee that the world's not going to end before Thursday, my time, right? But after that, we just don't know what's going to happen. If you can start to live like that, you will live a lot closer to the edge. You'll live a lot closer to the other person in your house. And now it's not just other person, it's other people. It's your children, it's your wife, it's your husband, it's the people who come into your house. As an Enneagram type 8, here I am throwing in the personalities again, the energy types. As an Enneagram type 8, I despise small talk. I hate it. I actually called in sick to a wedding of my wife's best friend. We both did. Called in sick to a wedding of my wife's best friend growing up, because we knew what it was going to entail. I came up with the wickedly amazing excuse of food poisoning. That didn't fly. It didn't work. And God definitely called us out. We definitely did not walk away from that one unscathed. But I canceled it because I couldn't stand the idea of sitting around talking about nothing, small talking with people in a way that is so pretentious and just over-trimmed, overdressed. My favorite miniseries of all time is a Jane Austen miniseries, and it's Emma. Is made in, I think, 2007, 2017, I can't remember. This appalling woman who is the wife of the pastor, Mr. Church. What is it? Elton, Mr. Elton. Mrs. Elton. She says, "What do you think about this dress? I think it's over trimmed. Do you think it's over trimmed? I have the tremendous fear of being over trimmed." And that is the conversation that I was trying to avoid. An over trimmed, pretentious, pompous. And she was saying it because she was over trimmed. Everything she did, everything she said was over trimmed. Everything was just like, here, maybe if I slap enough fake stuff on top of this, you won't notice all of the real stuff in here that I'm just dying to talk about. So that is my encouragement for you. Pesach, full moon, coronavirus, COVID, it's all here. It's all happening. And you've got a tremendous opportunity to not hold back anything, because there are a lot of people who are suffering right now because they've left romantic liaison. There's a lot of people suffering right now because they've left romantic liaisons elsewhere at work where they're no longer allowed to go. And now is an opportunity for you to wipe the slate clean. Even if you're not going to talk about it, you can take a breather. You can say, that isn't who I want to be. That's not how I want to live. I don't want to be just living until I can go to work again so I can see that person. I don't want to be sneaking around. I don't want to have to carry 2 phones with me. I don't want to be so controlling of my phone just in case somebody else looks at it. I don't want any of that. I actually don't want that for my life. I want peace for my life. In order for you to get peace, I want peace. In order for you to achieve Peace, you have to deal with the real stuff. In order to deal with the real stuff, then you can't hold anything back, because it's only the real stuff that you hold back. Nobody holds back the trim. Nobody holds back the small talk. They only hold back the real stuff. The stuff that requires vulnerability, blood on the door. That's the only thing they hold back. And that was the only thing that actually doomed them in the end. If God didn't see the blood on the door, then you were finished. He needs to see that vulnerability on the door. So put your vulnerability out there and just like make a change. You've got such an opportunity. Okay? DannyZ.com/HSH. Hot Sex Handbook. Yeah. That one will work. Go to that one. DannyZ.com/HSH. All right. Thank you very much for watching, and I will talk to you again soon.